Hey, Yashar, how are you?
I'm fine, thanks. How are you,
Good,
Michael?
good. I'm good. Yashar actually works in the marketing department. He runs the sales center and is focused on Salesforce management and specifically Salesforce within the automotive industry. And so I asked Yashar to answer some questions that I had seen. One of the newsworthy items in December was that Cadillac had agreed to buy out a bunch of its dealers. And as a consequence, a bunch of its dealers, and I think 880 took them up on it. And what they are refusing to do is upgrade their dealership to take advantage of electric car sales. So Cadillac, over the next 2 to 5 years, sees a lot of their vehicles being electric and kind of entering the not the workforce, entering the world, I should say, sales. And as a consequence, they're like, well, there's some things that need to be done as far as upgrading the maintenance. And also it kind of plays their business model, but I'm going to let Yashar talk about that. Appreciate you taking the time today. So I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to you.
Absolutely. It's a very interesting number if you think about it. 880 dealerships have agreed to exit the Cadillac brand rather than to invest $200,000 in ramping up their electric car capabilities there. And I think that says a lot about the electric car market in general. When you think about electric cars, what comes to your mind, Michael? I mean, the very first brand, Tesla, beat
Yeah,
everything else. And then
yeah,
you think about the kind of customer or consumer who buys an electric car and what they're enthusiastic about. I think the majority of those customers are Tesla enthusiasts.
yeah.
These It's completely understandable that these Cadillac dealers, who, by the way, every car dealership is an expert in their demographics and in the region that they're located. They know what kind of customer steps into their dealership and what they're looking for. It's a simple cost benefit analysis that I see that's going on here, and these dealerships have just not seen the potential for that investment to become profitable for them. If they spend $200,000 in ramping up their electric car capabilities, how many of these customers that they know very well will be interested in buying an electric Cadillac? They just didn't see it there and decided to accept the buyout offer. Which, by the way, if you look at the buyout offers, it ranges from $300,000 to
Hmm.
more than $1 million. So they decided to just exit the brand, take that money, and continue being a dealership probably, but not an exclusive dealer for Cadillac or GM.
Do you have any feel for, and I know dealerships, there's lots of varying sizes of dealerships, but that money, does that sound reasonable as a buyout, or does that sound like, not what it should have been?
It depends. My guess is that it's not. It's a reasonable. It probably among 880 dealerships, some of them have found that reasonable. Some of them have found that a great deal, and some have found that to be acceptable. Given that if they don't accept that, they have to spend $200,000 in building a capability that they don't see, at least in their zip code, in their market, pay off. My feeling is that there were a lot of dealerships there that this buyout offer was enough for them to exit the brand and do whatever they do, rather than put this investment in the electric market, a market that they don't see an positive side for them in the near future, at least.
Yeah, and I think it's funny, we were talking before this, which is, that market cap for Tesla is now surpassed all the other automakers combined. But of course, investment people look 10 years, 5, 10 years out into out in the future. But it's so if you look at the amount of, revenue it's producing, it, kind of kind of understand why dealers are like, not yet, or, and who knows. And honestly, I think if maybe a bigger brand, if they had come and said, hey, we're leaving if you don't do this, you're like, okay, because that's 80% of my sales. Although the demand, I think that's really important. I mean, which is consumer demand. If it's not there, we're excited about electric vehicles, but if people aren't buying them, it's a great experiment.
I think right now the people who are buying electric cars are mostly buying Tesla. So you can't separate the um, brand loyal customers from those who are loyal or interested in the category
Yes.
itself. So we can't say these are necessarily interested in buying any electric car.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah. It's very true.
just to be Tesla enthusiasts.
It's interesting. Also talking about Tesla, that the automated driving or the self-driving vehicle, and I think we're at level 3 out of those 5. You've seen some pretty interesting things going on in regards to AI and the automotive industry. Can you tell me a little bit about what you've seen?
Well, it's one of the research projects that we've been working on for a while now is AI in not only the automotive industry, but as you mentioned, my research is on Salesforce management and the interaction of salespeople, frontline employees, and service workers with customers. And what we're seeing, not just in the automotive industry, but across the board, is that we see a lot of AI applications that we didn't know exist before. We are pretty familiar with some of them. You mentioned the self-driving cars. We're all now familiar with chatbots that a lot of companies use for their service interactions with customers. But there are a lot of different AI applications that range from that cover the whole spectrum of interactions with customers, from when you as a salesperson see a bunch of leads and potential contacts of people who might become your customer, to when you talk to the customer, to when you reflect on your call and try to learn from your call for the next interaction with the next customer. There are a lot of AI solutions that do a whole range of assistant to the salesperson and we call it, we've categorized these various AI applications into 3 main categories.
Yeah.
And we call one of them assisted intelligence, which is which are AI applications that focus on efficiency, increasing or doing all the stuff that a salesperson or frontline employee would have to do, but with the assistance of AI, it could be done automatically. And it's all this admin work of entering these leads into the CRM system and qualifying which customers are more likely to buy and giving them a score and all this stuff. So we call these assisted intelligence. Some of these other examples of assisted intelligence are applications where they transcribe the whole sales call, pinpoint the main areas, and bring it up in the next interaction with the customer so that the salesperson knows what were the main points that were discussed during their call with the customer.
Nice.
The second category, we call it augmented intelligence. And that's the area where the AI comes into play to help the salesperson make decisions on things that they wouldn't be able to do on their own. So for instance, an augmented intelligence might say, okay, for this customer, you should use this particular language, you should use this particular pricing strategy, and this should be the way you handle the objections. So that's something that they learn from the huge amount of data that runs into their deep learning program and come up with these solutions. And the third category is what we are familiar with, which we call autonomous intelligence, basically robots and chatbots and those things.
That sounds awesome. I know there's a company called Sensei Analytics, and it's SENSAY, and they actually can tell through the sound of your voice whether you are what your emotional state is. And I think that would be fascinating as far as a car, a salesperson trying to sell a car, because we did a study a while ago, and many people are really stressed when they buy a car, even though, and it's nothing the salesperson is doing. It's just the whole process of, oh my gosh, I'm going to have another bill, or insurance is going to go up or down, or whatever it is. And so it's interesting to kind of think about long-term where that might go. It's fascinating stuff. Is there any company that's kind of leading the way as far as that second category you can think of?
There are many actually, and but the bulk of these companies. So what's interesting is that we've been looking at one of the main websites that collects the startup information and their fundings, called Crunchbase, which is related to TechCrunch.
Yep.
And what we've been seeing is that since 2014, if you look at all the startups that were founded sometime in 2014 and onward, in the past 6 years, and they're just focusing on AI, and you're just looking at the startups in US that are looking at that are helping sales and marketing.
Yeah.
The number is staggering. We got about 12,000 startups that are just in that category, and it's interesting that some of them that came earlier are now leaders in that area. For instance, a company called Gang.io or Chorus.ai. These are these fall into that augmented category that comes in after a salesperson's call or interaction with a customer. And what these guys do is that they analyze the whole sales call. They create a playbook based on the top performance sales call and how they handle their interaction with customers. And they also pinpoint certain areas for the managers to just click on and listen how the call went for the coaching purposes. So these guys are the leaders in that space. And there are a lot of other companies who are trying to mimic that specific area, which we call intelligence. But these guys are doing very well.
I like it. Sounds like a wingman, right? It's like, don't do this, stay away from that, do this. It's good. And actually, it's funny. I mean, it's interesting because if you've been a part of a sales call and watched somebody do it well, you're like, oh, I'm actually solving problems and not like, trying to force a decision. It's really interesting. Good.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, listen, I appreciate the time. Thank you very, very much for doing this, and hope you have a good quarter, and look forward to seeing you in the virtual halls.
Absolutely.
Talk to you soon.
Yeah. Talk to you.